Hey guys, what's going on? So this video that I wanted to do for some time now is about gun rights and the whole dilemma over owning a gun and gun violence. I think that it should be talked about, and especially for a place like Canada, which, I am a Canadian and we have different gun laws here. Obviously very strict here. You cannot get a permit to carry a weapon on your body. You have to have your gun locked up at all times. In transportation, the ammo has to be also locked away in a separate compartment and put in your trunk when you're transporting guns in Canada. Of course, you need a gun license and you need to register your firearms. Now, for long guns, we used to have the long gun registry, which eventually the conservative government that we had in previously had abolished it, but there's still records available, and I also believe that Quebec has a long gun registry as well. Now, I'm not making this video to insult people or to offend people. I'm simply making this video because I want to have a rational conversation about what it means to own a gun and why somebody shouldn't own a gun or why somebody should own a gun. And also, what are the politics behind that? And what is the philosophy of owning a firearm or a weapon of any kind? Because anything can be deemed a weapon. A knife is a weapon. Anything that you decide to pick up and swing at somebody is a weapon. I think that we have to talk about what exactly a weapon is and why guns are considered weapons rather than tools. Now, you may already have seen that I am pro-gun because of the title that you read on this video, which is gun rights are important for a free society. My argument is that if we have true freedom and true liberty, the public should have access to guns. We have the right to self-defense, even though that it's very muddied, and you can even get charged with an assault just for defending yourself. In Canada, it's very, very muddy. And self-defense is a very touchy subject because you have to absolutely prove, without doubt, that you are defending yourself. Whether it's video evidence, audio evidence, you have to prove it because an assault is an assault. And even if a burglar breaks into your house and let's say that you grabbed a baseball bat and swung it at him and hurt him, and now the burglar can sue you. So it's very complicated here. I think that it's not a black and white issue at all. I also want to say that I am against any type of gun violence and any type of violence that perpetrated on somebody or a group of people. It's always a terrible thing to hear about school shootings and shootings in public and people being killed or injured because somebody who's mentally ill or irresponsible with a weapon is using it against somebody to hurt them. That's absolutely disgusting. Now, the big controversy is these gun laws and gun control and different ways that the government can step in and control or regulate firearms in society. And it's controversial because it violates the freedom of individuals. And we've gotten away from that argument, I think, with why that is. And it's more about, well, either guns should be allowed or guns shouldn't be allowed. People are going to say, well, we shouldn't have guns in our society, at least not today, because why does somebody need a gun, right? We have police, we have our military, our communities. There's a lot of communities that are safe. I'm talking about Canada. I know that there's a lot of places in the United States that are really bad. And there are some places in Canada that are bad too, that a lot of gang stuff. And I'll get into that eventually in my video because I want to have an in-depth discussion about this and the many viewpoints that people can have. So in the United States, for the Second Amendment, it gives the citizens the right to bear arms. Not only that, but it gives their citizens the right to form militias, and it gives the citizens the right to defend themselves against a tyrannical government. Now you might say, well, Andrew, we don't have a tyranny here in Canada. There's not a tyranny in the US. Why do we need to have the right to have militias and own firearms? Well, I mean, when it comes to a tyranny, I guess it depends on who you ask, because I think the majority of people would say that democracy doesn't function. And if democracy doesn't function, then it's not a democracy. Then what is it? The founders of the United States put this in the Constitution because they knew how easily it would be for a government to turn tyrannical, and all tyrannical governments turn on their people. And the Constitution was designed in a way that it was to make sure that the government was the servant of the people. Because the people are the ones that are in charge, because they're the ones that have always been oppressed by society and by their governments. And that document, that a very important document, ensured the laws that people were protected. They had the right to free speech. They had the right not to be illegally searched and seized, to be illegally detained, for police to just barge into your house and do whatever they wanted. That's what that document protected you against, is to have liberties and rights in society. Because if you don't have that, you cannot have a free society. And I think that people may argue that, well, in today's day and age, the government plays a very big role in our lives. And it does. Certainly in Canada, it certainly does. And I think in the United States, it is getting bigger there as well. Now, I don't want to get into too much of a political party discussion, because to be completely honest, I feel like, especially in the United States, that the Democrats and the Republicans are just two sides of the same coin, and at the end of the day follow a similar agenda. Some is similar, some is not, but I think there are also some other string pullers behind the scenes. So without getting into particular party politics, I want to get into why governments would want to take away gun rights or control guns itself. Now, common sense does say that, well, if you have more access to deadly weapons and things that will hurt people, then it's probably likely that the crime rate is going to go up. Well, not always the case. You have a country like Sweden. Yes, they do have gun control in that country, and I believe that they have the similar laws as in Canada, where they have to lock up guns. Crime rate there is very low, and why is that? Because there's a lot of guns in that country, but somehow the crime rate is low. In the US, the crime is just atrocious. So why is that? What's the difference between Sweden and the United States? Well, my argument has always been that it's always the person who pulls the trigger. It's always the person that kills and not the gun. The gun is a device that you know how it works, you know how it's operated, and it's a deadly device. Just like a knife is deadly, and a baseball bat is deadly. These are all deadly weapons that somebody can use against you, or you can use against somebody else. Guns is particularly targeted in their control in society. We don't see knives banned, we don't see baseball bats banned, but we see guns banned. And the thing is that guns have always been the choice of weapon for governments, for individuals. I think a good question to ask is, why are guns so heavily targeted with the public, with citizens, but are not with public officials and police and those that work for the government and military? Why are they always immune to gun laws? Why are they always immune to targeting individuals that have guns, or targeting guns in general? There must be a reason for this. Well, the reason is simple, and that is that guns represent the ability to defend yourself. And yes, you can defend yourself with anything really, but guns have always been the number one tool to do that. I know that in England, the common police do not carry firearms, although there are police there that do have guns. Now, Why is it that no one gets up in arms when, pun intended, why a cop has a gun and why that's not a problem, but your neighbor has a gun is a problem for you? Now, is that the suggestion that all police are trustworthy, and because they work for the government that they can be trusted with a firearm? Look at all the shootings that we have with the police where innocent people are shot, and there's racism going on in the United States with black people being shot for essentially doing nothing. Why is the gun ban never targeted to police and government forces? It is my opinion that it's because it's about power, and it's about who owns those guns have that power. And it comes down to who is free in this society. Are you free if the government owns guns and you don't? What if you have a government structure that democracy breaks down and it turns into a tyranny and they use those guns against you? Are you still free? And now the government would have a power advantage over you because you're not armed. And people say, well, that'll never happen. The public doesn't have to own any guns. Well, I think that it's naive to say that that'll never happen. And we've seen throughout the course of history that democracies and governments have broken down and have terrorized their own people. Even looking at Hitler in Germany, who, when his party got in and brought fascism to Germany, they had a gun registry there. And responsible, law-abiding citizens who had their guns registered had them all confiscated by the government. Because an armless people cannot fight against a government that has guns and who intends on hurting you. So there's many examples of this in the past that we can see. And the thing is that free society is able to have the freedom to be independent and to be liberated from restrictions from outside forces. Now, the government can play a good role in protecting us as it was designed to protect our rights and to protect individuals. Drawing the line between protecting individuals and protecting society and protecting the government themselves seems to be always a juggling act. And I think that the intention is always to not only bring in these stupidity laws, which I call laws that are brought in to protect people from being stupid and hurting themselves or hurting others. A lot of this has to do with protecting the government itself. I agree that in some cases we do need stupidity laws, because some people are just so stupid that they need these type of laws more or less for people who are victims of irresponsible people who decide they want to drink and drive or do drugs and drive or are abusive people in society. We need laws in to protect citizens from being hurt by others. Now, I always ask people who I debate about gun laws, if somebody had a gun and they broke into your house and they were going to kill a loved one or yourself, and you were in an intense situation, it's a crisis situation, you only have seconds to react what you're going to do, because it's either this guy kills you or you kill him. And you have seconds to decide. The police are not going to get there on time. Matter of fact, this has happened so fast that you don't even have time to call the police. And like usual, the police will just show up way too late when the crime has already been committed. So what are you going to do in that time frame? You do have the right to protect yourself, although the burden is all on you to prove it. What are you going to do? Now, let's say that you own a firearm and you know somebody's breaking into your house. Do you go get that firearm? Do you not get the firearm? You know this guy has a gun, and anyone in your family could be shot and killed. Would you grab that gun and fire it to protect yourself and your family? Or would you allow this burglar to break in your house and do whatever he will? I think the answer is pretty clear for people who want to protect their family and protect themselves. Because nobody wants to see their family hurt, And when you're in a situation where someone's going to die, it's either going to be you or it's going to be him. And you have to choose who that's going to be, because he doesn't care. He's coming in there and he'll shoot you. So what are you going to do about it? And I will say that I will do anything it takes to protect my family, my loved ones, and myself from death or serious injury from somebody who is attacking them or me and is intended on killing or severely injuring me. I'm not just going to stand there and let this person do whatever they want to do. I have a couple stories that I want to tell. And the one story is about something that happens regularly, and it is someone shoplifting or making a robbery at a store. So what happened is this guy, he had a firearm in his store. It was locked away, but he kept it in his store just in case that something went down and he was going to be robbed. Well, a case came up where somebody did break into his store. Somebody asked for money, had a gun, pointed it at the clerk, and said that he wanted him to give the burglar all his money. The clerk refused and said, "I'm not giving you anything." And he told him to leave the store. This robber was threatening to shoot him. The clerk still refused to give the money to this man, continued to ask him to leave, or he was calling the police. So this clerk is now being threatened with a gun. But at the same time, he wants to protect his store, his property, and his livelihood, because he runs the store. The robber's masked, so there's no way to identify this person. It's not like the clerk can reach over and grab his hat off. The cameras are on, but they're only seeing a hooded man. So even if the guy just gave in to him and the guy left, they would never find out who this guy is. Clerk has a gun pointed at him, and this robber could shoot him, kill him. Who knows what's going to happen? So what does the clerk do? The clerk grabs his gun, points it at the robber, tells him to get out of his store. So then a shootout begins. The clerk ends up shooting the robber in self-defense. So you probably know where this story is going, where he shoots the robber and doesn't kill him, but injures him severely. The clerk has now been arrested for discharging a firearm and shooting with the intent to injure, as well as assault with a weapon. Why? Why has this clerk been charged with this when he was defending himself and his property? The robber, keep in mind, was also charged with discharging a firearm with the intent to injure and for breaking and entering an attempted robbery. But why is the shop clerk being arrested too and charged? Now this man has on his permanent record these charges. Now he has to hire a lawyer, defend himself in court over these charges. So then the clerk was sentenced to jail time for discharging his firearm with the intent to hurt. When you think about that story, was that fair to the clerk of what happened to him? Should he have just given the money to that robber? Should he have not had the right to defend himself? Because he did have the right to defend himself, and then he was being punished for doing that. I think it's important to look at the type of laws that we have and what really restricts us from the right to self-defense in a free society versus the simple laws of using a gun in general. Now there's even been talk in my hometown of banning handguns or banning handguns in Toronto. What is that going to accomplish? You have the underground market that is saturated with guns. And this comes down to another argument that I always use with people, and that is, even if you ban guns, they will still exist. And now, responsible gun owners are armless, while criminals run the streets with guns. Because, just like drugs, you can never fully enforce weapons, stopping people from maintaining a weapon. So all a gun ban would really do is put guns in the hands of criminals and take them away from responsible gun owners. I think that in a perfect society, yes, get rid of all the guns and not have any of them, and I'm talking about military, police, get rid of nuclear weapons, and it's not as black and white as guns are good or guns are bad. Guns are tools to be used and it's up to the individual using that gun whether they want to use it for abusive reasons or use it for responsible reasons. Because somebody loves to go hunting doesn't mean that they're a bad person. Because somebody who owns a gun doesn't mean that they're a bad person. But the stigma around guns makes it that way. And people that are responsible gun owners are painted in a way that they're somehow bad people because they own guns. Or there is some kind of hysteria over a person who owns a gun might go out and shoot somebody. This is all nonsense. This is all BS that's driven by the mainstream media and other agendas from the powers that be that don't want people to own guns and push gun control. And mixed with people that are so in hysteria over these shootings and people with guns that they make rash decisions. I totally agree that there should be certain regulations on guns. I think that there should be licenses that people will have to get to own a gun. I think you should take a psychological test to take a gun. I think that if you're mentally ill, you shouldn't be allowed to own a gun. Only people that are mentally stable and are responsible and have proven that should be able to own a firearm. It is important for self-defense. It is important for a free society to own guns, especially when the government has more than enough, and it all goes down to that old document called the U.S. Constitution. Now in Canada, owning a gun is more of a privilege than it is a right, and it's one that can be easily taken away. So I have much more to talk about this subject, but what do you guys think? Where do you guys stand on the gun debate? Do you think that guns should be banned? Do you think that more gun control should be brought in? Or do you think that there shouldn't be a lot of regulations and that there should be no problem with people owning firearms? What did you think of my arguments? Do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? Make sure you post in the comments below. Let me know what side you stand on and what your thoughts are on the freedom of somebody, the freedom of an individual to own a gun in our society. If you like this video, make sure that you hit the like button. And if you haven't already subscribed, make sure you subscribe. And always remember to check out some more of my videos. You can follow me on Facebook and Twitter. I'll post those links in the description box below. Let me know what you think. And make sure that you keep it locked on the Andrew K channel.